Welcome to Slow and Steady, the podcast where you get to follow along as we figure out how to build and run a SaaS. I'm Benedikt.
And I'm Brian. Each week, we'll give you an honest peek into our lives as we work on our products and keep the lights on with consulting. Today is January 22nd, and I am feeling conflicted.
This is episode number 25, and I'm feeling organized.
Good for you, man. Getting your stuff happening.
Yeah, like after our recording last week, a lot of unexpected stuff happened, and suddenly my to-do list was swamped with work. But I think we figured it out by today. We had to do a bunch of paperwork related to Claire's vesting, the ending of her vesting period. So we had to finalize that stuff, and then I had some problems with one of my customers with Stage. That threw me a little bit off the track, and a lot of small stuff, but it feels like everything's resolved now. And earlier today, I just went into my calendar and blocked the next 2 days for everything. So no one's allowed to schedule any calls in there.
Nice.
Just to be able to get some work on the code done.
Just get into it. Nice.
Yeah.
Very good. Well, I'm feeling conflicted. I couldn't think of the right word to write down because I don't even know that conflict is entirely it. So much as just I'm feeling impatient, but I know that I need to tell myself to be patient. Today is just one of those, I can just feel it, and I should probably just go to the gym when we get done recording or just change my mindset completely, because today it feels like one of those days where I'm like, why am I doing this to myself? Why am I doing this to myself? When I just go work at one of these great remote, companies that I'm reading about and researching, and just give myself a break for a while. Because I'm just feeling deflated, or impatient, and I know I shouldn't be. It's part of the grind, but yeah, that's how I'm feeling right now, man.
You've been putting a lot of good stuff over the past week. Your remote worker resources, really, really cool.
Cool, thanks.
I browsed through it a couple of times already, and the new edition you added today about the employee handbooks and stuff like that.
Yep.
I started reading through a couple of those, just browsing and taking some inspiration.
Cool.
We don't have any employees yet, but eventually these will be useful.
Yeah. Yeah. No, that is why I feel conflicted about it. Is it feels like this is kind of started. It's starting to, or at least pieces of it are coming together. Things are conversations that I have now with potential customers or with people. It just feels like I have internalized a whole bunch of resources and a lot of my own thinking and things, and so it feels like it's coming together, and it feels cohesive internally. And so I know I should just be patient and just be fine. But the part that is not coming together is click. Okay, here is where you're going to create a sustainable business out of this now. Does that make sense?
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. On the thinking and content side, that's fun and that's cool. Product side still feels really unknown, but
yeah, but then again, I mean, if you take the time and build a little bit more of an audience around this topic, maybe there will be some more insight, and maybe you find this one pain point that's worth building a product around or whatever.
Right.
So I think it's a worthwhile investment, and the stuff's really good. I was this is the perfect content marketing approach you're doing there. It's great.
Yeah. I guess I wish I would have struck upon this interest, this is what I want to research and this is what I want to work on sooner. Because I am starting to wonder if like, oh man, am I running out of gas like right when I need a little bit more of a push and I need a rest. I need a break. Or no, just hang in there just a little bit further and you'll get a second wind. But I don't know if that makes any sense. Do you feel like or not.
There's too much on your plate these days, or where does the feeling of you need a break come from?
I think the feeling of needing a break from uncertainty of where next month's income is going to come from, like just having been consulting for a couple years now and like having never completely cracked the code of leads come in over about 3 or 4 months that eventually turns into a project. So it's all good and predictable to a degree. I've just still never solved that with consulting. And so I think trying to focus on working on Headlamp and pulling these resources together and sharing it and people being like, oh, okay, this is really cool. Great. Nice. While also not having a section of my brain that's like, well, where are your clients? Do you have enough clients? What's February look like? What's March look like? That is what I need a break from.
Okay. I understand.
I just need a break from that.
So right now is your full-time Headlamp week or weeks?
Yes. Yeah. So last week and this week, for the most part, just it feels like I am feeling conflicted because I'm telling myself, just keep doing what you're doing. It's coming together on the one hand, and don't give up now. But
yeah. Do you already have like a new consulting gig lined up right after this, or are you basically on the hunt as well right now?
No, I've got one client that's really steady that I basically kind of just put on pause for a little bit. So that will spin back up. But I need to add a project, for February and March. So
I guess that's where most of the anxiety comes from, right?
Yes.
Just having the uncertainty there. Yeah.
Yes, for sure. So anyway, what about you, man? What else have you been up to? How'd that NPM stuff turn out for you?
Yeah, I was able to figure that out last week. Turns out I mostly work with Ember.js these days, and the Ember ecosystem is like its own ecosystem inside the JavaScript ecosystem.
Okay.
And stuff that works there doesn't necessarily work the same way outside of it, and that I had to learn this the hard way. But one of our listeners, Will King, reached out and offered help with this. I had it figured out by then, but it was a really nice surprise that people offered help. So thanks, Will.
Nice.
Much appreciated.
Very good. Yeah. So Michael Coper reached out to me after last week and was like, stop whatever you're doing and just move the site to Netlify. Trust me. He's like, let's get on a Zoom call and I'll show you how I've got it set up. And so the specific problem I was dealing with last week, I actually did manage to get it solved after we recorded. But I still took Michael's advice and moved the site over to Netlify, and it is amazing. It's so easy.
Oh yeah,
it's great. So
it's super cool. Like, I'm a huge fan, and
yeah,
I think except for the user list website, which is still on WordPress, I think by now I've moved over everything.
Mm-hmm.
That's not on stage. Sure, like that's its own CMS, but everything else is on Netlify, and I hope we get a user list website on Netlify eventually.
Right. So I moved Headlamp over, but brianray.com is still on DigitalOcean, and so I definitely want to get that moved over. You can, because it allows you to do A/B testing by branch, and so the crummy thing about A/B testing is like the blink, when it re-renders copy or like shifts things around. To be able to do an A/B test by branch, it's amazing. So
yeah, like they have so many cool features that I didn't even think about like before seeing what Netlify supports. Like it's like even like we use Netlify for the user list backend or the user interface that our customers get to use. And they also like they deploy preview branches for pull requests and stuff like that. So whenever we roll out a big feature, then I can already share the link to the new UI without having it rolled out or behind the feature flag. Like it's just insane how simple it is. And
so simple.
Getting it set up is also super great. Just connect the Git repo and be done with it, more or less.
Yeah, no, it's a total win and a godsend for me. Like the DevOps side of things, I just want to stay as far away from it as I can, and it's pretty much what Netlify does. Hey, so
this episode is not sponsored, by the way.
What else? You got something about your support channels, unifying your support channels?
Yeah, like one thing I did today is I decided to stop doing customer support outside of our customer support tool.
Like, what tool do you use?
We use Help Scout.
Okay.
Basically, it's just a shared team inbox, like a shared email inbox.
Okay.
And we set that up. I think it was like the first thing we set up because we wanted to have like an email address that all three of us can read and manage and reply to and stuff like that without sharing the same Gmail UI or something like that because that gets weird. But like we do all customer support via that tool.
Okay.
Except for when friends or people that are in touch with me reach out on Twitter DMs or in Slack or whatever. Yes. And it's not like that I don't like helping them via that channel, but like it's basically isolated and hidden from everyone else. So the only thing I can tell is like, I did customer support for this guy today, and there's no proof. Like,
there's no visibility,
it's not like that,
and it's not
that they don't believe me that I do this, but like even in a couple of weeks when you're basically looking at, hey, did someone request this feature lately? What did they write? Like, what's the exact wording they used?
Yep.
That stuff is gone. Like, it's not in our shared inbox anymore, and there's no way to retrieve it or whatever. So I decided it's time to stop doing that. And yeah, I mean, the chat nature of Slack and Twitter DMs is kind of nice sometimes, but for the sake of visibility, let's just do stuff like this via email from now on.
So when you're just making it a point now, when you get that sort of request, to direct your friend over to the official channel?
Yeah, that's what I'm going to start doing. I wrote a couple of people already telling them, hey, please in the future do it via email. And when something new comes in, I probably ask people to just like send a short email elsewhere.
Yeah. Cool. What else?
Oh yeah, I started planning FemtoConf 2020. That's going to happen. It was a little bit uncertain. There was some uncertainty if there would be a new edition. Like, I totally wanted to do one, but like, given how much stuff's going on at all the times, it's kind of, I don't know if I have the time. But this week I decided, hey, let's
go for it.
Let's finally go for it, set a date, and start reaching out to the hotel and start getting the ball rolling. I've got a longish to-do list with, I don't know how many items, 50? Yeah, maybe a little less, but like a lot of to-do items that I start walking through. And it looks like when things go well, maybe I'll be able to announce a date next week. But that depends a lot on how the negotiations with the hotel go and stuff like that. So
good luck.
Yeah, that would be.
So where is it going to be?
It's still going to be in Darmstadt.
Okay,
local to me.
Yes. Yep.
I thought about moving it elsewhere, but like the overhead added because of that, like just unfamiliar place.
Yeah, right.
Me having to travel on top of that, like all that stuff was
Okay.
like, no. I know it's kind of boring to have this conference in the same location for the 4th year in a row, but in the end, the location is probably not that important. So,
yeah. Cool. Well, good luck.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, thank you.
I don't think this will be the year, but maybe one of these years I'd like to get over to Darmstadt and
yeah, that would be nice.
Check out your stomping grounds.
Unrelated topic. I also booked my hotel rooms for MicroConf in the US finally, and I still have to book the flights, but I should probably do that next week or so.
Yeah.
So
okay.
Yeah, there's no it will be expensive when I decide not to come now. So. I better go.
You're pretty much locking yourself in now, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well, it'll be fun to record one of these in person.
Oh, absolutely. You're still coming as well, right?
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, that will be fun.
Yeah, most definitely. Looking forward to it.
Anything new with you?
I guess so. My other updates. The remote work series on Bright and Early. I think it's going well. I've really enjoyed the conversations I've had. And third one is actually publishing while we are recording this. So that'll be out today. Yeah, I'm loving just being to some degree just being able to keep my head completely in like remote work challenges and struggles for companies, like just staying in that headspace for an extended period. So that's been really nice. I had a good what turned into a customer interview yesterday. It was just somebody in my network that we had caught up in a little while. He runs product for a startup here in Boulder, and he was asking what I was up to. I was asking what he was up to when we started talking about remote work, and it turned into a mom test interview. Like what was just supposed to be coffee and catching up was immediately just like, oh, okay, because they've got all the classic problems around communication and misalignment of manager expectations with team member expectations, and they have folks in different countries, and so it was good to chat with him about that, and just talking through like the spectrum of offerings from high touch training and workshop consulting type of engagement to productized service to $49 a month application that you can one click install and manages your all those problems
manages
for you.
Everything for you.
Yeah. Just talking through those things. So it was good to he's been doing this for a while, and so it was kind of helpful to hear some of his objections to just like the whole training and workshop side of things. Whereas like, yeah, we've done that so many times, specifically around Agile. He's like, we'll bring in Agile consultants, and they show up for a day and a half and drop all of this information, which is good. Like he's saying, I'm not disagreeing with the advice, but then they leave and we all just go back to work, and habits kick back in, routines kick back in. Like there are reasons, why they work the way that they do. And so, it was so good to think through that piece of it of, you bring somebody in to kind of point you in the right direction and point out some areas of improvement. But if there's not something in place that is continuing to offer some scaffolding and some redirection, when things try to push back to the way that they were, it's gonna fail. So still processing all of that. But it was a great conversation. Validated, once again, just validated a lot of the same problems. Validated that they, they spend money to bring in either what's the right way to put this? I mean, they spend money on trying to solve the problems to make their workforce more effective and more efficient.
Yeah.
So whether or not that's one level of abstract too wide from what I'm trying to do with Headlamp, which is make your remote team function more effectively and efficiently. Still processing, still thinking on that, but yeah, it was good. It was a good conversation.
Do you think there's room for a consulting offering that's like maybe a longer term thing with like monthly check-ins or weekly check-ins? Because as you said, like I experienced this firsthand with like especially agile consultants and stuff. Like I think just having one show up, talk about it for a day and then leave, that doesn't work at all.
Right.
But I remember doing this with a friend who I brought into a company that I was consulting for as an agile consultant, and he was there for like at least a year on site with them for several days a week and just like helping them to figure this out. I think that ultimately did work quite well. But like it's usually important when the challenges, like when there are challenges or problems arising, that you have someone there who's able to help you figure these out and point you in the right direction. So maybe an offering where you can be like the remote work consultant that's also remote, but checks in like with you once a week.
Yeah.
That might be interesting.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that was definitely one note that I jotted down was, high touch, onboarding, so to speak, like training, onboarding with them on best practices. And here's what we need to fix. Here's what we need to improve. And then ongoing retainer, even at a small rate, or a lower rate, just to, stay in touch on that. So
that might work, but I'm not sure. Like, it sounds good from me as a provider perspective, but how's the demand for that? That's a big question. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, and I'm just like, it feels like for that to be really, for it to be effective, that would need to be like many, many, many months long type of engagement. And not entirely sure that I want to sign up for that right now. And plus, there's just all, lots of issues, lots of problems with that. Challenges with it, but who knows?
Yeah. And you probably need multiple engagements like this in parallel, and then suddenly it's a full-time job and you don't get to do anything else.
Right. I at least I say this now. If it happened, I might end up kicking myself, but I would at least trade, full-time product and development consulting for full-time remote work consulting. I would at least make that trade.
I guess that makes sense for a while, but at least right now it doesn't sound like that's the ultimate goal for you.
No,
like
it's not.
Sounds like you still want to build product and build your own product. Yeah.
I think it comes back a little bit to what we were talking about last week of, oh, hey, is there a bridge? Like, is there a way that I can bridge product and development consulting across to remote work oriented consulting, which allows me to get paid to do product research for Headlamp. Right now I don't get paid to do product research for Headlamp, and that's a problem.
I mean, one way to do this would be like transition over to doing that remote work consulting thing and just charge a lot more. Like instead of like using the same rate, double it or whatever, and like try to carve out some more free time that way. But I don't know, does that work with the, I mean, maybe it does. Like as we discussed last week, the companies interested in this are probably the bigger ones, so they'd be more comfortable spending more money on a consultant for this than maybe your current clients are are willing to spend on development work.
Right. Maybe so. I should test this. I really should.
I mean, if you can pull off like charging double the price and only work half the time, that solves your problem.
It's nice work if you can get it. But yeah. Okay. Well, those are my updates. Any updates of yours that we didn't cover?
No, I think that's about it from my side.
Cool. Well, I jotted this late, so I'm not sure if you saw it, but there's an interesting conversation going on around transparency and bootstrap companies right now.
Yeah,
so
I saw that.
Maybe we can just take like 10 minutes to give some thoughts on that. But of course, Transistor pulled their public revenue numbers, handful of others, and so Tyler Tringus of Earnest Capital says, I love indie hackers, but I'm constantly hearing founders complain about a flood of identical copycats, sometimes cloning the landing page verbatim and other bullcrap after getting featured there. So is there anything that can be done? Patio 11 says, just ignore it. 5 minutes of brain sweat on this is 5 minutes too many. I mean, that's pithy. That quotes well. It's also easy to say when you are well established and you're not some like scrappy bootstrapper who is suddenly looking around at multiple copycats, just ripping off your, struggling like 8K a month, 8K MRR business. So in principle, I agree with Patio 11 to ignore often, but I'm not so sure that it's so simple to give that blanket advice in this case. I'm just curious, what are your thoughts on pros and cons of transparency? We're being largely transparent here. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think transparency still is kind of a good thing because it helps everyone learn and get some outside perspective on things, or like learn from other people's experiences. But I think just having like all your revenue numbers out there just by itself probably isn't that helpful. It's all there's always more to it, and especially if you revenue by itself also isn't a good indicator about the business. Like you might have a high revenue but no profit at all,
right.
And what's the point of that?
Yeah, people aren't publishing their profit margins on Baremetrics.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that's the part where it gets interesting. And it's always easy for someone outside of it to assume that you see the high revenue numbers and yeah, they must be bathing in money every day and everything's going well for them and see it increased, whatever. But you don't see the stuff that happens to either make that possible or even the expenses you have to cover to make this work, and maybe even the amount of work people put in to get these numbers. And I think that's also one of the things that cause the amount of copycats, because I guess a lot of times the revenue numbers look nice and the product idea by itself looks or sounds easy enough to build. And sure, you build a copycat. I can do this in a week or so, and I think that's what Patio 11 is also thinking about with his comment there, is that there's so much more to just these two parts. Just building it doesn't cut it, and you forget so many other things that play into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
lots of rambling. Did any of it make sense?
No. Yeah, it makes sense. I guess I also think just on the revenue side, publishing those numbers, what for a while maybe what was helpful about that was seeing how long people struggle before it really gets traction and takes off. That's really helpful. But yeah, the lack of the absence of context of profit margin, or how long were you working on the thing, building up the audience before even getting to even to that point. I remember, so at one of the first, what interview was it? I don't know, somewhere around like 9 or 10 or whatever, but interviewed Laura Roeder from Meet Edgar on Bright and Early. And if you had just seen the barometrics numbers for Meet Edgar, it would go from like 0 to 100K in 12 months. And you're just like, what an incredible success story. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, it's because Meet Edgar was a consulting service before it was a product. And they were pumping a ton of, and she shared all this. Like they were pumping in a ton of advertising money to drive that revenue. And of course, like it worked. It was part of the strategy. Like, but if you had not had the whole story and they had just put those numbers out there, then I might have actually been, negative for people to look at it without context and be like, oh, what am I doing wrong? But no, there's this whole other piece about it. So
yeah,
I think it is really helpful for people to share the struggles like in the moment and how you overcome them. It creates a sense, I think, of like, I'm not in this alone, community, etc. But I do think that I expect we'll see a lot more people start taking down their public revenue numbers over the next year or two.
Yeah,
the
I think
is definitely worn off there.
And this is also something we discussed with the user list team. Should we do this like and share our revenue numbers? And we eventually decided it doesn't make sense like sharing them out of context. And
right.
A couple of weeks ago, I sent out a couple of tweets that included revenue numbers, but it was like to illustrate a certain point and a certain idea.
Yes.
And had some context around them. And it wasn't just like our barometrics dashboard with everything in there without any comment or anything.
Important context. Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, I was curious what you thought. Any of y'all listening, what is your take? Are you sharing your numbers publicly? Do you have any thoughts on the pros and cons there? Love to hear.
Yeah, definitely.
Cool. Well,
okay. I guess this wraps it up for this episode.
Okay. Show notes at slowandsteadypodcast.com.
Yeah, and follow us on Twitter, slowsteadypod. See you next week.
Later.
Bye.